Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the northeast side of Budapest in a town called Magyarod for the Hungarian Grand Prix here at the Hungaroring. Division 1 in the Midwest F1 League looks to take on this 14-corner, 4.3-kilometer circuit. Two DRS zones here, with the first heading down the pit straight, and then immediately down out of turn 1 as the grid heads into the rest of the winding downhill section. That is Sector 1, with an average lap speed of just over 120 miles per hour. Now, Virtual Pirelli have given us the C4, C3, and C2 compounds, and of course the intermediate and wet tires as well, if needed. So yeah, hot spot here, typical Div 3 commentator, joined by, well, I would say Midwest F1 League royalty, Season 2 winner Jacko of Division 1. Jacko, how are you doing?
Oh, you're too kind, hotspot, with that introduction, but yes. Thank you. I am here, usually with Crash, but now hotspot this week, and that's a nice change to the commentary box, and we'll see if the curse, I don't know if you know about the curse, hotspot, might be broken without Crash here. You know about the curse?
I have, I've heard it mentioned once before. I am not all that familiar, though, however.
So it seems that whenever Crash so far and I have been commentating on a race this season and Alfa Romeo wins, we swapped up the divisions a couple of weeks ago at Bahrain. We left Division 1 to watch Division 2, and Alfa Romeo won there in the hands of Fusail, and that 1 week Mystic failed to win in Division 1. So the test right now is to see if it's Crash or both of us that's cursing Jim.
And I was going to ask about that as well, because it's funny enough you mentioned that. I was recording Mystic Joker's Grill the Grid segment earlier today, and he didn't sound all that confident with the track. He told me that in races past, he hasn't been all that confident with it. Only recently, he said he found his footing on that, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays in. But do you have any front runners that could spoil the party today? Because obviously this season so far has been the Mystic Joker show yet again.
Well, it's always very hard to bet against Mystic Joker, of course, reigning champion, championship leader as well. But then you've got the likes of Jin, who won at Bahrain, finally breaking his Midwest duck in Division 1. There's also Matt Rosie, a previous race winner in Division 1, who's been very strong at this track in the past, and in fact had pole here last season, although it was Mystic who won the race. You've even got Scuba Steve, who's been very strong this season in comparison to 2020, for example, and always going to be up there and in the race. And then there's Hash, who's second in the championship and always up there and thereabouts, and might be able to pounce on anything if there's any mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely, and uncommon knowledge this may be, but Jin currently has the race lap record of the Hungaroring for Division 1, and as we see, Yulmir being the first driver to start his timed lap. Now, I mean, this track is often compared to Monaco without the barriers and whatnot right up close against you. Still amounts of time limits, invalidations to be had, lots of tricky complexities to this track. I mean, you've raced here many times. Does that does that nickname, I guess, live up to its potential being a very tricky and Monaco-esque circuit?
Yeah, that's been said a lot of times, particularly in the real-life commentary box. I think it's a bit quicker than Monaco, particularly in the middle sector, but, the idea still stands. Probably nowadays Zandvoort might be a bit more like Monaco without the walls, but, yeah, the idea still stands. It's very difficult to pass other than at turn 1.
And I'm actually a little bit surprised now, because we have we've got a decent chunk of the grid that is starting their qualifying efforts on the soft compound. Now, going into the race, that's probably not going to be the move to make, obviously. That soft tire only lasts about 8 laps under race conditions, so I'm a little surprised we're not seeing more people start out on the mediums, as that will definitely be the most valuable strategy today. And as I'm seeing here from Possible Bacon, we are having dry everything today, so hopefully no bowling into turn 1, which if you saw the F2 race last night, that pretty much speaks for itself.
Chaos. But it should be avoidable this time, as you said, dry forecast for the race. But you never know. Someone could get a really good start, come from a few rows back and try to be a hero. You never know. You never know. I think, though, that the softs are being chosen here by a lot of these drivers because of the prevalency of the safety car. you know, that could happen quite easily. So many races of attrition so far this season in comparison to last game. So that might be an expectancy, or it might be just a flat-out two-stop. We don't really know. I haven't done enough running here to actually know for a fact.
Well, and so the soft tire will only probably last about, as I go along with Jin here, has just invalidated this lap. It's only going to go about 10 laps. So, I mean, the one stop to the hards is definitely a possibility. The hards, pretty much a safety car. What do I have here? I mean, a safety car anywhere after lap 5 could see a stop to the hards to the end of the race. Of course, it's going to take some doing, but I mean, it's going to be interesting to see, because obviously the one stop early on, it's not going to help you that much to be on the race the majority of the time on the hard compound. So that'll be something interesting to see, as Kate Thomas currently has the fastest lap, just under 3/10 clear of Hash. So a 1:14.4, that's pretty solid. Seems like a pretty competitive lap.
Certainly does. The other thing we have to keep in mind is that a lot of the drivers on this game actually prefer not to use the hard. Like, it might be the best strategy of last game, but sometimes the hard can be quite difficult to turn on and even keep in control for an entire stint. So in terms of prolonging one's safety in the race, maybe people will be steering clear of it.
It's definitely a possibility. I mean, I definitely, the trend last season and well throughout last game as well was definitely keeping to one-stop strategies. Of course, that's not always the case in this game, but so yeah, definitely. And this is one of those tracks that always has that sort of, you know, there is some variation to the tire strategy that could definitely play out to people's advantage. Not every track has that. This is one of the few tracks that do, and so that is usually one of the reasons why we get a pretty decently entertaining race. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of this circuit in real life, but so far in my days with Midwest F1, this track hasn't disappointed me just yet. So hopefully we'll get ourselves another good one tonight as we go along with Yolmir, who first to complete his hot laps so far, still top 3, so looking okay at the moment. Still probably some ground to be made up, but he's looking okay for right now.
For sure, there's a lot of classics that you can think of around this track, even in real life. There was the one with, I think it was 2005 or something in that region, where there was Schumacher and Alonso starting towards the back in the wet, coming through the field. That was quite an exciting race. I mean, even this year, with Ocon winning the race, absolute chaos. But even in league racing, I remember in F1 2013, a 5-stop was viable around here, and even won the race a few times. So, I mean, in terms of pit strategy, it can offer some things that are different. Not necessarily on this game, but in the past it has. So, don't see why it wouldn't be at least viable to run more stops than at other tracks.
Absolutely, and so back to the obviously Impossible Bacon right now, the highest driver classified on the...
Hell, he's in the wall.
Oof, and well, luckily he hasn't done in the car that bad, but yeah, he's definitely
I think that was just
had to
front
go
wing
there.
damage.
Just lost
Certainly
the
lost
end plate
the
on
left,
the... Yeah, that's definitely not good, and he's on a... Well, I guess the good news is he's used those tires pretty much to their capacity now, about 2 laps old. I mean, they probably won't go worthwhile more than 4, so that's... I mean, it's not helped him, but I guess it could be worse.
So we were wondering about everyone starting on softs, and now I'm seeing Mystic set a 17.5 on softs, and now out on mediums. Maybe he threw everyone for an absolute bum steer, and was like, I'm going out on softs, and then backed out of it, and now he's going out on mediums to set his actual lap.
It could very well be, and I know for a fact, Mystic Joker, one of the more intelligent drivers that I've seen, definitely has the capability to do that. I mean, he is an absolute wizard when it comes to just, you know, being able to predict things like this, you know, being able to throw everybody for a loop, essentially, and now he's coming out on the fresh set of mediums, and well, let's see what he can do. I mean, he's not set the best lap, but obviously a lot of these drivers like to take that first lap and just kind of get accustomed to the circuit, and well, let's see what Mystic Joker has to do here as he starts yet another lap, or I say starts it, he goes 4th now, didn't tell me, but there we go, 4th place on the mediums. That's pretty solid, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, if it is the preferred strategy, he'd be happy with the top 8, I'd say, if he's the only one on the correct tyre. I've seen him do this before, particularly in Spain, going to the mediums and being like 7th or 8th on the grid, and it just working out really well for him. So, not surprised, honestly.
All right, so while we have a minute now, let's go into our constructors' battles. Now, as you said before, Alfa Romeo just really starting to run away with it on both ends. Both Mystic Joker, who's a solid gap ahead of Hash in second in the Drivers' Championship, but more importantly in the Constructors' Championship. I mean, they have quite a gap back to second place, but the battle for second is really heating up. I mean, only an 8-point gap between Ferrari and Alpine for that second spot at 658 and 650 respectively. Then it starts to get a little bit more of a gap. Red Bull in fourth at 536, and then everywhere below that is under 500 as Haas sits in fifth, 490, AlphaTauri 431, Williams at 425, Mercedes 411, Aston Martin at 330, and then McLaren just breaking the 300 mark there with 301 currently. And I tell you what, it seems like right now the Alfa Romeo team, they might just start. I mean, obviously it's still kind of early days in the season, but they're already starting to run away with it. And I mean, that's kind of what happens when you have Mystic Joker on your team. And of course, he's got Sui as well, who Sui's a great driver in his own respect, had a lot of Division 2 success. So hopefully we can see him have a good performance. But yeah, it's definitely starting to open up there at the top a little bit, getting a little bit comfortable perhaps for the Alfa Romeo team.
It's true, but you can never be too comfortable with the point system that has been introduced for this season. It's so stacked towards just finishing rather than finishing well that one DNF could really throw everything topsy-turvy. Especially with Smith, Pell and Matt Rossi being as consistent as they are for Alpine, just inside the top 10.
And speaking of almost not finishing, I've just noticed Soy Loco now on his way in. He's had an off somewhere because his front wing is completely gone. I tell you what, he's probably burned up that set of mediums as well. Just went out and had a spin and probably put a lot more wear onto it than he needed to. So tough break for him, as we see. Or is this is
he's not a
hell
driver who needs
out.
tough breaks. He's had a very unlucky season so far with just a myriad of DNFs, and I believe might be the only one still on 0 points because that standings haven't been updated, and Random I think scored last week.
Yeah, Random Series currently sits 24th at 45, and Soy Loco at 0 points, as you said. I tell you what, Soy Loco in Division 2 really was starting. I mean, that was kind of a problem for him in Division 2 as well. Didn't always have the consistency, whether it be bad luck or just absolutely, poor circumstances going into it. I remember Brazil, he was close to winning the race and then just kind of had one little mistake and it ended his race. So I'm sure once he finds the consistency, he'll be a much better driver and put a lot better results to his name. So hoping for the best for him on that front. As I tell you what, he's a very talented driver. All of these guys in Division 1 are. It's just a matter of, as you said, finding the consistency and sticking with it.
For sure. 3 drivers yet to settle lap, so kind of surprising to see Scuba Steve down there. Very strong driver for Mercedes. There's also Sui and young DJ CJ without times so far. They're all, I believe, coming out on soft, so we'll see if they can fling themselves up the field as Helg goes third. Very close lap times for third and fourth there.
All of the top 8 within that, or minus Matt Rossi. Matt Rossi's actually gotten out to a bit of a gap here. If you look and see, that is 0.5 of a second back on Cake Thomas. That's an absolutely scorching lap for Matt Rossi. But I want to bring it to Sui as he starts his lap on the medium compound. Now, I haven't seen too much of him this season in Division 1, but in my days commentating Division 2, he's a mega talented driver. Don't get me wrong, but there are just sometimes he might just err to the side of caution just a little bit too much, and it ends up hurting him in the long run. There's been a lot of opportunities that he's had in Division 2 that could have been race-winning opportunities that he's just hadn't taken. And I don't know what you've seen out of him in Division 1 so far, but I'm hoping that he can pull together a result today. Honestly, he's a good guy, and he's a really talented driver, but sometimes you just got to throw just a little bit more caution to the wind if you want to get those good results.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the best teammate to look up to and to understand any data he might be able to from. But he's, solid midfield talent, and it's very difficult to break into those last few positions because everyone's established, knows what they're doing, and just very tough. But Sui, obviously, his brother Mystic might be able to help him, but for a long time Sui has been a very, very consistent midfield talent, and he might just need to put a bit more time into it. I don't know.
We have 4 minutes to go here left in the session. As you see, Cake Thomas out on an outlap again. He's not, as I said, 0.5 of a second the gap to Matt Rosie. Matt Rosie, what's happened to Will Ince? Has he gone off or is he just retired in the pits? Because that's a little bit of a shock to me. He's only set one lap.
Sector 2.
Oh yeah, look at him. He's looking like
with
actually.
Scuba Steve, you'll see it. Oh, it just disappeared, but it was in the left wall of the exit of the final turn in Sector 2.
So Will Ince, I mean, another one of those drivers that hasn't had, from what I can understand, hasn't had the easiest beginning to his Division 1 campaign so far. And he came into this division last season, or into this season rather, with so much confidence going into it. And I tell you what, another one of those really talented drivers that just sometimes can't find the luck to get these good results, and it seems like that might be the case for Will Ince this season. I don't know if I'm speaking incorrectly here, but I tell you what, very talented driver, and his results aren't showing what he's capable of so far.
I think we might have expected a bit more from him if we were continuing this season on last year's game, but I think a lot of people are struggling still to adapt to this game, and he may be among that, those few who aren't quite finding their stride from last game.
And that was the case with a lot of drivers, and we all knew going into the season that it was going to be the case of who adapted the best and who was going to be able to put in the most laps. And obviously those that are rising to the challenge here of Division 1 are those that fit that criteria. And Random Sirius has gone off. I just saw that.
And that's the left front mangled underneath the front of the McLaren.
So yet another qualifying session claimed here at the Hungaroring.
Bit of a mess at turn 1 as everyone files out of the pit lane and gets into the order they need to be in, letting other cars through.
Yeah, and I tell you what, I don't know if it's just me, because obviously I'm not the best driver there is, but this is another one of those places where it's really tricky to kind of get acclimated to the track once you're out of the pits, because immediately you have the braking zone immediately. You're right out into the middle of traffic into turn 1, not to mention the way in. I mean, you have one little slip up and you've hit the entrance to a barrier, so definitely not easy, although I assume these Division 1 guys are well accustomed to that challenge, as we see Smith Pell starting as another timed lap here on a fresh set of softs as well. I believe he's going to have, I believe this is his Alpine teammate of Matt Rosie in front of him. He might get a little bit of a tow from. That could be helpful.
Of course, a great omen for them who won in real life at this track. Hopefully that they'll be able to repeat that for Alpine in their mind at least. But Smith Pell has definitely flown underneath the radar for me this season. Somehow really high in the championship with no podiums. Just a really consistent driver who's, I believe, finished every race. Really impressive to me.
Tell you what, so all but 2 drivers out on track right now, minus the 2 obviously that we had the DNFs with. So we've got 30 seconds left, and has JC just gone off somewhere? Or is he just retired? Nah, he's just pulling into his pit stall. But Smith Powell setting a purple sector 2, so he's on his way around the final corner now. Let's see what he's got in store coming around the final corner. See what, it doesn't look like a bad lap. He's going to go P4
his time as well.
And Matt Rosie, wow, he improved by another 0.2 there nearly. That's solid.
Alpine looking super strong right now. Mystic, however, is 0.4 up on his previous best. He's on the softs now. 0.4 won't do it though. So we'll see if he even sets this lap or elects to stay on those mediums. He's currently 10th though.
So Scavney, Young DJ, Jin, and Sui completing their qualifying sessions here. A lot of these drivers, I think, still on potential timed laps. Matt Rosie, I think, being one of them, or he might just go back in. Oh, and Choker sets the fastest lap by 8/100ths of a second. Yep. Wow. I tell you what, we went into this qualifying session. We saw, I believe it was Cake that said a 1:14, a low 1:14, and we say, yeah, that's probably a pretty competitive time there. And then Matt Rosie went and kind of blew that out of the water, and Mystic Joker beats him by 8/100ths. I mean, this is the competitiveness. He found 8/10 on
his own lap in the last sector alone. That's
ridiculous.
That really surprised me.
So as it stands right now, Mystic Joker P1, Matt Rosie coming in P2, Helg at P3, I think is Smith Pell. He doesn't look like he's going to be making another attempt.
Soy Loco's on an in-lap. So that just leaves Smith Pell, who you mentioned, also on an in-lap.
So look at that. Mystic Joker on what you could say is a last-ditch effort as well, because he was really down there for quite some time. Comes back, as you said, finds a bunch of time in Sector 3 alone, and then comes and takes provisional pole at the death. So what a brilliant performance there from Mystic Joker. Matt Rosie gave it one heck of an effort as well. He was untouchable for the majority of the session, and he ends up P2. So it's going to be an interesting one to see for sure. Wow, what a result this is.
The real surprise for me though is Jin is down in P13. He's on the medium though, but I mean P13, it's a bit too low.
And he's over a second and a half behind as well. It's not like there was some sort of. I mean, he's had to have made a clear mistake somewhere in the circuit to qualify that low. Because as we said before, Jin, really super quick racer, has the lap record so far of the circuit in race. So I tell you what, that is definitely a bit of a shock. But Mystic Joker taking pole position here at the Hungaroring in the last minute. So that's going very well for him. Jacko, you want to lead us down the order?
Alright, well it's Mystic Joker on pole yet again, finding 1.2 seconds on his final run compared to his medium run. Matt Rosie led the session for a long time, ends up still on the front row in front of Helg and Yolmir on the second row. Cake, Smith Pell, Hash, Scuba Steve, Random Series and Impossible Bacon all having to start on the softs in the top 10. Then it's Scavney, Young DJ, CJ, Jin as we mentioned, Super 14th with Swee 15th, Willand, Soy Loco, JC and Tiak rounding out the grid with only 19 drivers this time. We're missing Fred Head for Haas, unfortunately.
And Fred, I was just talking to yesterday during his Gorilla the Grid lap that he did. I tell you what, he looked really impressive. If you don't obviously know what I'm talking about, won't be out by the time of uploading this, but Gorilla the Grid coming to Midwest F1, hopefully by the break week. That's after Suzuka, I believe, so that's something to look forward to there. But I tell you what, it's been pretty interesting so far, to say the least. It's really interesting to see the drivers not only try to set a good lap, but also answer the questions at the same time. That's actually, I think it's gone over pretty well. We've had about 6 or 7 drivers so far take part in it, and they all seem to enjoy it. So yeah, hopefully that's a tradition that stays. Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that. It'll be quite entertaining. Just on the topic of videos, have you linked the live stream?
Well, it's not live.
Oh, you're doing okay,
yeah.
Very good.
Very good. Oh, I don't even have my clout for Raise Energy. Hold on a second. Let's skip this. There we go.
Fresh intel from the Division 1 chat is that Kate Thomas is wondering if he has enough time to pee or not. What else have we got? Super Ninas invalidating 2 lap times in that qualifying session. That might explain why he's as low as he is. And hopefully Cake is as quick in the bathroom as he is on the track.
Well, I'd hope so. He's got 20 seconds to do so. That's not gone over well. I mean, it's not like there's some sort of penalty for missing the formation lap, although he's going to start the race absolutely ice cold. So that's probably not going to help him any. So definitely some struggles from Cake Thomas there. But as we start our formation lap, this edition of the Midwest F1 League is brought to you by Raise Energy. Now, Raise Energy is becoming one of the fastest growing energy drink brands right now, and it's all because of their top-of-the-line flavors and precise formulas that ensure you're getting the most out of every single can. And with no dyes, fillers, or other unnecessary junk, Raise Energy, it's going to get the job done. It's a smooth energy drink with no crash afterwards. What more could you want? Visit repsports.com and use promo code MWF1 at checkout for 15% off your total order. Click the link in the description to begin your supply of Raise Energy. And even if you took me out in F2 yesterday, be sure to check out Adoltonian's Slipstream podcast on Spotify and anywhere else podcasts are available, as Adeltonian and his friend Lingy12 discuss all things Formula One and Midwest F1 League related. Very fun podcast to be a part of, and a very good time in general. Now, for the tire predictions, the game default strategy has the driver start in the medium compound and switch to the hards about lap 16. But as we know, a lot of these drivers starting on the soft, so they're going to have about 8 to 10 laps to make the most out of these tires. But as we said before, an early safety car is going to change everything. As long as it's past, 5 laps into the race, it's going to be the one stop, potentially one stop to the hards. That's what people were looking at last season. As you said, not everybody favors the hards, the hard compounds in this game. So, Jack, I want to ask you, Matt Rossi in second, is Helg in third, Yolmir fourth. Who do you think is going to win this battle into turn one?
Very difficult to say. It all depends on who gets the best launch. It's very difficult to bet against Mystic Joker. But you know what? I'll say Matt this time. He's on the front row. He's very strong around this track, so we'll go Matt.
Matt
but I have
Rossi
noticed
winning the
not
battle.
A single driver who had the choice to start on softs started on softs. So we've got 11th through to 20th, all on mediums or hards. Willands and Soy Loco on hards.
That is a little interesting, and Willands and Soy Loco and Tiok, for that matter, all being disqualified on their formation lap. So obviously they can still race, but they're going to start ice cold. So definitely not what they wanted, but that's going to be interesting. And as the lights coming on here, we got 5 lights. The suspense. It's lights out and away we go in Hungary. Now, Mystic Joker got a really solid start, absolutely leaving Matt Rossi in the dust, but behind, it's nearly 4 wide going into the first corner, with, I believe that's the Red Bull of Cake Thomas down to the inside, backs out of it nice and quickly, though, to avoid the contact with Smith Pell there. And I tell you what, they've all got away from turn 1 nice and clean, but here's Smith Pell around the left side, or the right side, rather, of Yolmir, but doesn't make the overtake happen. Very reminiscent of Alonso and Hamilton this past Hungary race, rather. And I tell you what, they've all gotten away cleanly. Oh, except for that is the Aston Martin of Soy Loco that's gone around. And oh man, yet another tough break for him. Definitely not what we wanted to see.
Not the greatest launch from Helg, and it costs him 3 positions on the run down to turns 1 and 2. Also losing 3 positions was Scavney, went from 11th to 14th. Quite a few drivers up 2 positions though, including young DJ CJ and Sweet.
Oh, we've got an Alpine of Smith Pell that's gone off. Smith Pell has gone off. That's in turn 10. And I tell you what, it doesn't look like he's got any damage, but that's and Super's gone off. Man, and well, the good news is that they've not had any wing damage here, but Mystic Joker leading the charge around the final corner and across the line to start lap number 2, and I tell you what, he's already making a little bit of a gap back to Matt Rossi. It's not insurpassable, but I tell you what, Matt Rossi very soon is going to be under attack from Yolmir, especially once they get the DRS as they go down into turn 3 now. Man, what is happening?
And Yolmir, it's been a long time since we've had him on the podium, and he's definitely due one. He's got the talent. He was there several times in the past, and especially last season. So expect to see the McLaren running up front for the rest of this race.
Hopefully, and I tell you what, starting to form a little bit of a gap now. Of course, Cake Thomas starting to fill in, but it looks like the gap from about Cake on back starting to open up even more, as I think Helg is actually under pressure from his teammate of Scuba Steve here, who's got Hash behind him. Oh, and we've got a car gone off. That's the Ferrari of Tiok back there, and how badly has he done that in? He's come out of turn number, I believe that's turn 5, yeah, and he is towards the inside of the circuit. How badly has he done the car? And doesn't look that bad at all. Maybe you just had a little bit of a spin there. It's definitely possible. Oh, and that's JC. And now JC's gone off.
There was way too much angle in those tyres. I got to say, he threw it in there and it just didn't stick. Probably still too hot from his previous escapade. So Tiak needs to calm that down, hope for a safety car at this point, because those tyres will have had a heat cycle and a half.
So thrills and spills in the opening laps so far, although it has been pretty decently clean. No front wings to be lost just yet as far as I can tell. Mystic Joker opening up about an 0.8 of a second gap back to Matt Rossi, who's got Yolmir behind him, and then it's another about 1.2 seconds back to Cake. So it looks like it looks like it's just going to be these 4 drivers at the top battling for the podium positions, unless, as you said, we get a safety car, and then things are definitely going to get mixed up now. But DRS been open, and I tell you what, it's been a very solid start to this race. If you're in the top 4, pulling away from the rest of the grid.
I tell you, I just got on board with Jin just to see his rear flick out, and I thought he was gone, but he saved it really well. So,
and speaking of going around, that's Scuba Steve.
I think Scuba Steve is out, and that's our first wing off completely, I believe.
It's a virtual safety car.
He was running up there in P6 at the time.
And he was doing a really good job as well. He was keeping it in there. But unfortunately now he's down a front wing, and we do have a virtual safety car. Probably not going to get upgraded to a full safety car as it's no DNF, but definitely not what he needed.
No, absolutely not. I mean, it'll be a good opportunity for him to replace the wing though underneath the virtual safety car though. However, he will be still locked, I would imagine, to at least a 2-stop. As Impossible Bacon actually takes the opportunity to pit for Williams. He was on soft tyres, but there we already have green flags, and his pit stop is yet to happen, so he won't gain that much time. He puts on the hards though.
Well, he's going to have to make those hard tires. He's going to have to reach them. I mean, obviously, they can last probably the whole race from here on out, but it's going to be like driving on an ice rink for the rest of the race. And I tell you what, both of those drivers definitely. Who's gone on? So we've got Impossible Bacon, as you said, just.
Is out of the race completely.
What's happened there? Oh, he's off in a terrible spot of the circuit. It's over in turn 3. Come down the hill and
he's way off the track.
Yeah, that's. How's he done that? Has he just?
You'd have to imagine there was another car involved for that to occur.
Definitely a strange spot to go off.
But to end up there, I would say there's been a collision. But impossible to say with who. Unfortunately, we didn't catch it in time.
So Matt Rosie has shrunken the gap back to Mystic Joker by about 0.3 of a second now, under the virtual safety car.
So much so that Mystic's actually defending to the inside, or at least trying to break the toe. So feeling the pressure here.
Yeah, and I tell you what, but he's handling the pressure well. Yeah, I've yet to see him make a mistake that's resulted in time loss. I guess maybe Matt Rosie just capitalized on the VSC more. Maybe really just hit the limits on the Delta, because he's made up about 0.3 of a second. But looks to be doing okay at the moment. In fact, I believe if we look at the gap, all of the what's just the top 2, but all the top 4 within 2 seconds on each other. So this could get close at a moment's notice, but. Fun race so far.
Always a massive gamble to go too close to your Delta. I mean, the penalty is a drive-through, and that's absolutely race-killing. But I guess if you can nab half a second here or there, you can end up back in the DRS or escaping from the DRS, and it can be so important for the rest of the race. So Matt Rosie clearly played it very well, as you pointed out. Unfortunately, though, Haas, with both cars now not scoring, a very poor week for that team.
And I tell you what, and they were in quite the battle in that midfield as well. I mean, they're not that far ahead of AlphaTauri, although it's a solid gap, but it's definitely going to be coming back closer now. But I tell you what, so we have 7 drivers in the field right now on the soft compounds, as we see Matt Rosie almost wanting to challenge for the position into turn 1. Oh, Joker might go a little bit wide here, and what's happened to young DJ? Has he just gone off?
He got disqualified. I'm going to have a quick look at the race director to see for what exactly.
It's a bit strange.
Wrong way. So I'm guessing he's spun out and he struggled to turn himself around. In fact, after that, it says JC Blackley with a warning for a collision with young DJ CJ. So hopefully that's not damage for the AlphaTauri.
Yeah, I tell you what, could definitely be a game changer here. But I tell you what, so we've got 7 drivers on the soft compound right now. The rest of the field on either the mediums or the hards. How much of a disadvantage are these guys on the soft compound? I mean, the medium tire, assuming they do a one-stop, which obviously they could not, they're going to go to about lap 16 on these compounds, or about 5 laps in. So I'd say, how much of a disadvantage do you think these guys on the softs are at? I mean, they're going to have to box soon.
It really depends where they come out in traffic. If they don't come out in traffic, they might be able to make use of the next tyre, which will be obviously in a better condition than those who haven't pit, and the undercut will come into play. So, it really depends. where they feed out. If you come out into a battle, you're in real trouble unless you're, able to DRS one then the next, or hopefully only one piece of traffic and it comes at the right point. Otherwise, it could be anyone's guess.
And to tell you what, only 8 seconds separates Mystic Joker from Random Series, who's currently the furthest driver down the grid that has on the soft tires. So, presumably, whenever these guys do decide to pit, they're going to be in a little bit of traffic here. It's going to take, about 25 seconds to get to exit the pit lane here. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And, we've got Will Ans.
Let's get on board with Impossible Bacon. We might be able to see the wreckage.
In a full safety car,
though. Oh, right in the middle of the track, perpendicular.
And I tell you what he's done. He's hit that curb on the outside of what is that? That's turn 4. No, that's turn 3. I tell you what, he's hit that curb a little, and he's gotten a little bit too generous on the throttle as he is on that hard compound. He's just spun that thing round, and man, another unfortunate race there for Will Ans, who is definitely wanted to be off to a better start to this season, and not what he needed, nor did the AlphaTauri team in general. But here we go now. The leader's choosing to come in and pit. I'm assuming everybody that's on this compound, the soft compound, is going to come in. Mystic Joker, Matt Rosie, Yolmir, and the rest all coming in. Oh, it looks like Scavney's going to come in as well. That's a little bit of a surprise. And it looks like Jin is going to inherit the lead here.
Yeah, so after starting from 13th, we now see his strategy come into play. On mediums that are 7 laps old, obviously, from the start of the race. Swede joins him up there in P2, but Mystic is out in P3, and that could be key. Obviously, the guys who are with him are right behind, and I think we're going to see JC Blackley overtake a couple of them, but certainly not many. So I'd say advantage the guys who've just pit, because they have no delta really to catch up, and they don't need to make another pit stop.
And going into the Discord and looking now, and Will Ans definitely not happy.
I'm out.
Happy with staying awake until 4 a.m. For his DNF is obviously over there in the UK, definitely the wee hours of the morning, but
luckily for him, he can go to sleep a bit earlier than he would have if he'd finished the race. Good night, Will.
Good night, Will. So I tell you what, though, with Mystic Joker and the rest, and pretty much everyone else boxing for this hard compound, it's going to be a little bit easier. I'd say this safety car, albeit still early, it's come out at the perfect time, because obviously towards the end of the life for the hard tires, they'd start to fall off a bit, they'd get even less grip. Now they're in a position where they're not going to be that bad at the end of the race. Definitely, as you said, advantage to the guys that stopped for the hards.
I mean, it may have been even more beneficial if it came in one more or 2 more laps, but definitely from what we're seeing here, there's no now advantage in terms of time for Jin. He's got Swee behind him, who will, I assume, let Mystic through. So this really has helped Mystic, I would believe.
So let's go ahead and see who's made up the most ground since the start. Jin and Swee, both being the... I guess they haven't boxed under the safety car. They made up 12 and 13 spots respectively, but as you say, they could have, they're definitely at a disadvantage now. And then other than that, Teox made up 7 since the start. The largest mover in the wrong direction. Also yet to stop. Smith Pell losing 9 since his initial starting position. Not what we wanted to see out of him, but I tell you what,
it's really helped him though. He was like more than half a lap behind.
It definitely.
So, yeah, that's worked out. And interestingly, no penalties so far.
I know, I was just about to bring up. Yeah, that's a little interesting to me. I did not expect. I mean, obviously this track, I wouldn't say is notorious for handing out penalties, but it's one where you can definitely get quite a few if you're not careful, and they've kept it really clean from here on out. So props to them for that.
Yeah, very easy to run wide, particularly at the end of the second sector. Even at the end of the start of the second sector as well. It's just surprising me they're not a single penalty, even for something silly like a collision under safety car.
So Matt Rosie Rosie's in an interesting position here, as the safety car is going to be in this lap. Now, it's not like he hesitated on the start of the race, getting into turn one and trying to fight off Mr. Joker, but I think he's missed his opportunity there. He might have another one now, so this is going to be interesting to watch, especially knowing that at least the two guys, first and second, are definitely going to have to stop at some point within the next, say, 7 or 8 laps. So this is going to be an interesting one here for Matt Rosie. I think he's definitely going to have to take the opportunity when it comes as the field accelerates around turn 14. And it looks like Mystic Joker already getting around Sweet here, or at least trying to. They're side by side.
Yolmir's in incorrect direction. Oh, big crash. Yolmir spun at the last turn. A couple of guys have run into him. There's the first penalty.
He's picked up a 5-second for a severe collision.
Yeah, he was perpendicular to the racing line and on it, and he got absolutely T-boned.
Meanwhile, Matt Rosie jumps up into third. It's side by side coming around that corner. Ooh, and I think Matt Rosie was just almost lost the car there. Very good save. Meanwhile, Jinnit has made up a 1.5-second gap back to Mystic Joker. So a solid start from Jinnit. Swee's lost a spot. Matt Rosie putting the pace in as much as he can. And then, as you said, Yolmir didn't have the start that he wanted, and I tell you what, that's not what you want coming off a safety car, because all that ground that is made up and all that advantage that he did have is now out the window. Although he's only about 3 seconds back, it's definitely not going to help him with that penalty. So a tough break for him, but as we see, Random Sirius only 0.3 of a second back to Scavney. Now, it is notoriously difficult to overtake on this circuit, but I think once DRS comes into play, we could see a little bit more action. But it's a very solid midfield fight this is going so far.
Yeah, so I'm not sure whether Mystic was allowed through by Sui or whether it was just a great move to start the restart. But yeah, Sui losing 2 positions early on. Matt Rosie had to make that move as soon as possible, otherwise he'd have dropped Mystic completely. But yeah, Jin with a great restart finds himself well outside of DRS trouble. But you know, he's going to come under fire pretty soon, I would imagine, when those mediums start to fall off in comparison to the very fresh, hard tyres behind him.
And if we look now, Scuba Steve, now he's towards the gearbox here of Impossible Bacon, about 0.2 of a second now, the gap between these two drivers. Scuba Steve, very talented driver, and I tell you what, he's made a lot of improvements since coming onto this new game. I remember going through Division 2 last season, was one of those drivers that had a lot of those kind of one-off incidents where you're like, well, how did that happen? How has he gotten himself into this predicament? But he has just grown enormously as a driver since the transition, and I tell you what, I'm not too sure how he's been doing in Division 1 this season, but all the times that I've raced him, he's definitely been a very strong competitor. Oh, and we got Ferrari going around Haas. Oh, the two Ferraris! The two Ferraris get together. Haas got thrown about at least 10 feet in the air there. Somehow hasn't DNF'd. And a drive-through. Man, that's definitely not what the Ferraris needed.
I would imagine that's floor damage too, to be hit that hard in the side.
I'd say what?
Absolutely
not what either of them
Ferrari,
needed.
Especially for the man in second in the championship.
Not to mention second in the championship, but
oh no, they're going to stack as well.
Oh no!
Unless he's taking his drive-through. He might be taking his drive-through.
That could be it, but that's going to be interesting to see. But not to mention that Tiok is in a close second in the drivers, not Haas rather, close second in the drivers' championship. Ferrari's in that battle for second with Alpine right now, only 8 points clear. It's definitely not what they needed. Alpine, by the way, having a not the best day, but pretty solid, as Matt Rosie currently in third, as he's starting to fall a little bit further back of Mystic Joker now.
I didn't see if anyone else was involved in that, potentially causing the spin for Ash, but I don't know if you did. There was certainly a lot of cars scattering to get around it, though.
Well, that was very close. I tell you what, it's that section of the track, especially that corner, those barriers kind of start to funnel in towards the track once you get further outside of track limits. Obviously, out a little bit further, they start to shut in a little bit, so I'm surprised nobody got claimed by the wall there. And yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get to see who that was, although it's very likely that he's just kind of been a little too heavy on the throttle, maybe hit the curbs too much. It's definitely a possibility. Maybe not last game, but this game definitely easy to make those kinds of mistakes. But as we go along with Cake Thomas now, down to the inside of Sui, into the DRS section, and looks like Sui's just going to start to pull away, although his tire's a bunch older, about 8 laps older than Cake Thomas. And yeah, Sui looks to be struggling with grip right now, I will say.
Interesting for me that we didn't see the DRS open in the second DRS straight there for Kate Thomas. As he makes the move, really committed
Wow.
move down the inside of turn 4. Very nicely done, no contact, and stayed on the track for both of them as well.
That was a beautiful one, I will say. Kate Thomas, give yourself a round of applause there. That one was brilliant, as definitely makes that move stick. Now, and I was watching Sweet throughout that whole sequence there. He was definitely, I tell you what, he looks like he's in a bit of trouble with his tires. Honestly, he doesn't look like he's got all the grip he wants. Definitely letting off a bit more than he needs to, especially through that corner right there. He might be in trouble here. I'm not sure. He doesn't look that confident at the
Fascinating
moment.
battle for 15th, and it ends in absolute trouble for Tiak. He's facing the wrong way. He's actually picked up very quickly, but he was side by side with Yolmir there for turn 2, and had been side by side for a few corners as well, but now falls back into last with 7 seconds deficit as well. Hash, interestingly, did not pit the second lap around there after his drive through, so somehow must have escaped with minimal, if any, damage.
Meanwhile, it looks like the battle for the lead. Oh, we got Random Sirius making the move around Scavney through turn 1. I was just able to catch along with that last second. It looks like Random Sirius really just sent it to the inside, because I went along with him there, and Scavney really just had to get back in the circuit.
I think he may have been defending, actually, because Scavney and Impossible Bacon have been running line astern for a while. So that may have been either reclaiming the position or defending it.
Meanwhile, the battle for the lead now starting to inch within 0.5 of a second. Oh, who do we have that's gone off? Anyone? That's
Soy Loco.
That's Soy Loco. Oh, and yet again.
Very easy place to find yourself facing the wrong way there, turn 4. Either curb can do that to you.
So unfortunate there for Soy Loco, whose day goes from bad to worse. But now still the battle for the lead, 0.5 of a second separate them. I tell you what, Jenna is doing a good job maximizing the pace out of these 13-lap-old medium tires. But here comes Mystic Joker with the DRS, trying to now find the left side of the circuit, down into turn 1 now. Who's going to win the drag race in? And Mystic Joker is going to get him by a long shot. That was a nice move there, and I tell you what, that one's done him very well. And Jennett's definitely going to have to start thinking about pitting sometime in the near future, as he is losing pace lap by lap.
And his teammate once again was facing the wrong way there. At the same turn we saw the Ferraris come together. But he's picked himself up once again, but he has lost out to Hash in the meantime. It'll be very important for Matt Rosie to clear Jin in this lap as well, otherwise he might find Mystic escaping down the road.
Absolutely, and I tell you what though, it's not like Jin is just going to let him have this position. Matt Rosie really needs to get going here and make this overtake on Jin, as Jin... Oh, it's Scuba Steve. What's happened to him?
Steve.
Oh, he's hit the barriers on the exit of turn 5, and another full safety car. Not what he needed, and wow, another wrench being thrown into the plans here. Now all these guys that are on the mediums are going to have the opportunity to come in this lap. Now they could potentially be at the advantage. This is ever-evolving storyline here.
Well, anyone can pit now. Hards would be the obvious choice if you've started and haven't stopped yet, and you've been on the mediums that entire time. Yeah, Ginny's in the pit lane, as predicted, as is Sui. Those two guys were the ones who were yet to pit. Let's see what happens. Oh, Jin goes for the
Interesting choice.
I guess he has to, because he's going to feed out to the bottom of the top 10. He needs to make some attacking movement.
That is true, yeah. A lot of these guys that aren't going to pit this lap, I mean, yeah, they're going to be on fresh tires, but they're not going to be within enough to make some sort of battle for the lead immediately. So Jin's gone with the soft. So obviously he's the fastest tire on the grid.
This has worked out very well for Sui, because he's now on the freshest hards of them all, and is in P9, which is fantastic for him. Scavney has just emerged from the pits on fresh mediums, also still in the top 10, looking very strong for him. And Smith Pell will be the car behind him on the same strategy.
And I tell you what, these mediums right now, they could go the whole way, especially with the safety car. That's going to help them a lot. I tell you what, going onto the mediums might have been a pretty solid decision. Towards the end of the race, it's going to get a little bit hairy, but I tell you what.
Well, there'll be 19 laps to go at the end of this lap, and there's no saying the safety car will be in this lap anyway. So it could be 18 or even 17 laps of green flag running, supposing there's no further safety cars. So I'd say the medium is the best choice. Unfortunately for Jin, it wasn't an option for him. but he's gone very attacking strategy, and it probably will need to make another pit stop. But then again, the guys at the front may too. You don't know. And if it's another safety car, we might find everyone throwing softs on at the end of the race.
And just want to point out right now, JC Blackley being under investigation for a collision with Super Ninjas on lap 4. Interesting there. Coming out of turn 1, he gets DRS off of JC. Decided to go high, started merging on the track. So this is why Super Ninjas DNF'd. It was a collision with JC that ended up with him in the barriers. As you predicted, there was definitely another driver involved in that, and it looks like JC could be the culprit here, so we'll have to keep an eye on that one.
Yeah, I don't know if there was a gap there. I'm just watching the video. Yeah, that's a very unfortunate collision for Sabinas, but that's obviously for the stewards to decide. Yeah, we'll see what they say. Scuba Steve saying he can't play this game anymore. Well, that's
I think we've all said that.
Yeah.
I think we've all said that at one point during this game so far. I mean, what do you think of the new game so far? Obviously, you're not racing this season, aside from F2. I mean, how does the game feel to you? Because obviously, everyone's got their own take on it. A lot of people not happy with it. A lot of people, or some people, feel okay with it. How about you? How do you feel?
I mean, well, I do race F1 in elsewhere.
Oh yeah, sure.
But you know, I think it's not as strong of a game as last year, and there's a few reasons. There's a couple of glitches, a few more glitches than there were in previous editions, but it's also just the sheer inconsistency of the handling. Like, the handling is nice to be a bit more realistic, but it's got to be more consistent. Like, sure, if you're going to simulate wind changes every lap like in real life, great, braking points will change, but I'm guaranteeing that's not why things are being inconsistent in this. So yeah, I think it could be better.
Absolutely. And well, safety car in this lap, and I tell you what, in my time getting a G29 going into the game, my respect for those that race on wheel has gone up, as it's damn near impossible in this game for me, at least. Of course, I've only had it a little while, but here we go, back to green flag here. Oh, what's happened to Random?
He lost the rear. He caught it though, but he's lost a few positions there. Impossible Bacon and Jin slipped through.
Somehow
he's got trouble from behind.
And he's been able to save the car as well. Now, that's the second time we've come off the safety car and had a McLaren spin out in turn 14. But lucky for him this time, he was able to come back, and Jin picked up the penalty.
Yeah, Jin picked up the penalty because he went past before the control line of the car that was spinning, which is so unfortunate. And given that he's that one car that definitely needs to pit again, he's not going to be able to get that 5 seconds removed. He made a nice move there on Bacon though, and he's already up into P5, but that will be served in his next pit stop. Random has spun, he's hit the wall, but not too hard. He's lost all the positions though. Bit of a tap there on the back of Hash, who's side by side through the chicane with his teammate. But Random Serious goes from 5th to 15th in half a lap.
Not what he needed at all. Meanwhile, Mystic Joker has made up about 1.2 seconds back on Matt Rosie now, so he's at the start of dreams. Matt Rosie's got a decent gap on Cake, but then back to Cake. Only 0.5 of a second between him, Helg, and Jin is also closing in on this as well. We're going to have a battle for this third spot very soon.
Yeah, Jin's got so much grip. Look at him just flying around the outside there of Helg. Helg probably won't fight this. He'll hope to lasso himself to the back of Jin's Aston Martin and just follow him through. Yep, P4 now for Jin. Although I don't know if his strategy will be enough to have him as a factor for even for the podium. Actually, it's going to be very tough for him.
Go along now with Smith Pell, who's got Scav in front of him, not to mention Sui and JC look to be in a battle as well. And now Sui's on the 2-lap old hards, JC on 10-lap old hards. What do we have here? Is Jin about to make this move on Cake? He's right up to his gearbox as they come out of turn 5. I mean, there's no chance he's going to be overtaking through this chicane here, but that was pretty close.
Thinks better of it, yeah. I mean, I have no doubt he'll make this move within the next lap or so, but yeah, it's very silly to think to throw it down the inside there, and he, of course, with the brain on his shoulders, does not choose to do that.
I just can't believe the pace that he's cranking out right now. He's honestly making the rest of the field look slow with how much grip he has. He's just honestly being able to cover every inch of this surface. But as we said, this strategy, it might not be the one it might not pay off for him. As you said, the podium positions might even be out of reach for Jin as he's back to the gearbox yet again of Cake Thomas, down to the right side, and he's going to make the move happen before even getting DRS, which didn't end up having. So
provisionally third, but I think he needs to make another stop, and that stop's going to be slow. Where's that going to drop him out? Last at this point. Obviously there'll be a bit of field spread by the time he needs to make that stop, but I don't know if it's going to work out. In the pits is Random Serious after that poor restart. He's going to be well behind the rest of the field.
No, he didn't have any wing damage as far as I could see. He might have just completely done in the tires after all that, so pretty reasonable why he's come in. But now Jinnit within 0.8 of a second on Matt Rosie, and he's just absolutely cranking the pace right now, doing everything he can to make up for this impending 5-second penalty that he's going to need to serve under his next pit stop, which he's almost certainly going to have to take. So yeah, interesting stuff here for Jinnit. I mean,
his saving grace could be this absolute train from JC down towards Soy Loco. 7 drivers with a ticket to the JC Blackley train right now, and if he continues to slow that pack up, Jin may look to drop into that gap once he establishes enough of a gap. It's already around 8 seconds as he takes second place. Stranger things have happened.
Definitely, and he's taken second place and set the fastest lap there. Nicely done, and already Matt Rosie losing ground. Meanwhile, looks like Scabney has gotten around JC. Wow, lots of stuff happening there. Oh, has someone gone around? Well, there was contact being made between, I believe, Smith Pell and Yolmir. That's potentially happened. Sweet trying to go around the outside of JC through turn 3. Man, still side by side. Excellent racing from these two to keep it clean. Now Smith Pell to the right side. Looks like he's going to get past JC. Gets hit from the rear. Deposited. Oh man, and he's just been hit behind from Yolmir. And I tell you what, all those he was on a very nice little groove there of overtaking, and it's all gone for nothing there. And I tell you what, I don't know. Obviously, you got to have some split-second reaction time, so that braking zone is a tricky one into that corner, and if you don't get that right, it's going to be bowling for you, and that's exactly what's happened. Smith Pell on the receiving end of that.
When you have so many cars in a small, piece of track, it's very difficult, and I think we saw that yesterday. Jin and I had contact there, and he was trying to regain the rear of the car in F2, and it sent him into the wall on the right there, and a similar thing happened to Smith Pell, although he went around instead of losing a wing. Kind of a lesser of the two evils.
Yeah, and speaking of Jin, now this is the point where, what's happened to Joker? Joker's slowed here. Joker has massively slowed, and Jinnit's gotten around him now. Jinnit was about 1.2 behind, and then going into this into the pit straight here, and he's just gone and taken the position. What's actually happened to Mystic Joker to cause him to lose that lead? Has he just done that to let him through?
Strategic, I'd say. If you have a car that's behind you on a strategy that's clearly not going to challenge you, sometimes it's just best to let them through and get on with their own day and not risk any battles that may cause both damage. That's my prediction of what happened there. We might be able to ask in the interviews afterwards, but yeah, tough to say.
Yeah, I was about to say, if it was planned, obviously that strategy could come into play, but I tell you what, that was a bit sudden, is what it was. It's caught me off guard a little bit, but this is the thing. Jinnit isn't really making up that much time before Mystic Joker potentially letting him go by, as we have a car off over there. That's I believe that's Smith Pell that's going around acting slowly. But Jinnit is not making up that much time anymore. As I said, in the early days of the soft compound, he absolutely was flying through. Now it's gotten a bit stagnant between him and seconds.
Yeah, you get diminishing returns on the fresh softs, and also, not to mention, his ERS charge is actually quite low. It's down at 8% currently, whereas drivers around him are up at 70-80%. So, he may have just pushed to get through the traffic early, as Matt Rosie picks up a 3-second penalty, which could be very important by the end of the race. Jin, he just needs to establish the gap to the midfield now.
So Jin's on the 6-lap old softs. He's probably going to be able to last another 4 or 5 laps at the absolute maximum. If we look at the gap from the leader onwards, so right now he's probably going to drop down to at least 11th or 12th at this rate. JC Blackley has done that little train there. He has still got that 5-second penalty to attend to on his stop, and as you can see, it looks like Mystic Joker starting to just potentially catch up with him a little bit now as the softs start to fall off.
It's also a lot safer for Mystic in terms of defending if he has DRS himself. As we see, DRS manoeuvres on the front straight, Hash down the inside of Sui, and takes 9th position. A very nice recovery from Hash, who of course was facing the wrong way, being hit in the side by his teammate, obviously not his teammate's fault, with a drive-through, and he's now finding himself back up into P9.
And it looks like Helg could be on his way to challenging for that 4th spot very soon, about 0.6 of a second the gap from him to Cake. Both those drivers on the same age hard compound at 15 laps old. Oh, we got a car off potentially over there, and it wasn't enough to alarm anything there. However, Helg's still making his way back to Cake Thomas.
This battle here between Cake and Helg is for the last place on the podium. And it's been a long time since we've seen Helg on a podium. This has been a very strong run from him, of course. He qualified in P3, fell back on that opening lap. But now we're seeing a net 4th being potentially, a net 3rd in provisional 4th, because Jin, obviously, on that alternate strategy.
That is true, yeah. I tell you what, Matt Rosie does have the 3-second penalty, although he's lengthened that gap back to Cake up to 6 seconds. So he has himself a little bit of breathing room, unless there's another safety car. Then at that point, he's got to be absolutely perfect from there on out. But I tell you what, he's not done so bad.
2 cars in the pits. That's a puncture actually for Soy Loco. A
really?
Right front puncture. So
man.
It may be the contact that caused the yellow between these two gentlemen, because they both come into the pits line astern, soft tyres and a front wing for Soy Loco, medium tyres for the AlphaTauri of JC, who was looking for a good result, saying he had bad luck the last 2 weeks. Doesn't look like his luck has improved this week, unfortunately. Currently running in 14th place.
So the gap from Mystic up to Jin now within a second, and Matt Rosie not that far behind either, as we've got something happening there.
Again facing the incorrect direction. He's been hit again, this time by Sui.
Ooh, that's a 5-second as well.
Struggling to recover, yeah.
A 5-second penalty for Hash for the collision with Sui there, and unfortunately I didn't get a good chance to...
damage on that Ferrari.
Didn't get a good chance to
that's the
go along
commentator's
with
curse
that.
if you've heard one.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Matt Rosie starting to close in on Mystic Joker, 0.7 of a second. He does have that penalty, but while Matt Rosie starts to catch up to Mystic Joker, he's also put back 7.5 seconds back on Cake Thomas as Hatch does eventually come in and get that wing repaired. Now, this is interesting because I remember on the last game, you could go a significant amount of ways in the game with having part of your wing damaged. In this game, you have the slightest amount of damage and the car just loses so much performance. It's gotten a lot trickier now for these drivers, and it's really an incentive for them to keep it even cleaner.
Yeah, I mean, the unfortunate part about that is that a lot of people can make mistakes and cause you damage as well, not only to the wing, which is repairable, but also to the floor, which you can come into the pits and they won't necessarily fix, which is, quite an issue, I think, in this game. Especially if the mistake is not yours.
And Jin comes in now, so he was able to get a decent amount of time on those soft tires. He was able to get 9 laps out of them. Now he comes in. I assume he's going to be dropping back to at least 10th potentially. And it's going to take that 5 seconds.
Seems a likely place for him to come out. But he'll be challenging for that fastest lap, of course, which is worth points. As we see Yolmi challenging Impossible Bacon, who's already lost out to his teammate. So Scavney has come through past Bacon at some point. He's now side by side and makes contact. He's around, and that's a bit of wall for the Williams. Not
That's
nice
not
to see.
that's not gone well there. And I'd say they were doing a good job of keeping it clean. And I wonder if Bacon just went a little bit wide, or maybe Yulmir cut in a little bit. I didn't get the best angle for that, but not what Impossible Bacon needed. Not what they needed at all.
And he's going to be absolutely eaten here by Jin. Thankfully for Jin, Impossible steers a bit further right than he perhaps would have if there was no one behind, and lets him through. But Jin is flying in 8th. He's got 24.5 seconds to make up to the lead, which is probably not going to happen. But there's definitely, 7th will be on the cards, if not maybe catching up to the back of that battle, which stretches from Cake to Yolmir, which is like a 5-second stretch.
And I tell you what, Jinnit has the fastest lap right now, so he's definitely just put on this tire, and he's trying to keep it safe, I suppose. And I tell you what, he's absolutely flying. And meanwhile, Mystic Joker, that gap has opened up to about 1.5 seconds back to Matt Rosie. The gap back to Cake Thomas, now 8.5 seconds. So Matt Rosie's done a great job of pushing the pace and able to, I guess, take the meaning out of that 3-second penalty he's picked up.
Yeah, into the pits for Bacon, as we thought. He must have damaged the wing at that turn 1 incident. He'll also go for the fastest lap. Jin will probably be able to set it this lap as he's flying up to the back of... actually, maybe not, because Tiak might get in his way. But, looking at the battle for the podium, Cake has it currently. Helg is behind him, and Scavney is catching them both. And of course, Jin is catching them rapidly. Whether he can get there or not is another matter, though.
And this gap from Cake Thomas to Helg, Hash picks up the fastest lap. Wow, and I believe he's done in Jin's lap by about 0.5 of a second there. That's wicked fast. But this gap from Helg to Cake was 0.5 seconds about 2 laps ago. It's up to 1.5 seconds now. That part's a little interesting. Scavney's on much fresher tires, 11 lap-old mediums, now closing in within a second on Helg. This one's going to come down to the wire, I think. Hopefully it does. Hopefully we get a nice battle for the final podium spot here. And but they're running out of time to do so. They're going to have to start making things happen now as Sui picks up 3 seconds for multiple warnings.
DRS for Jin here, and there won't be much the Ferrari can do in front of him. Goes to the inside, but Jin will just brake around the outside on the racing line, you'd imagine, and take the position, as that's exactly what happens. Jin gets a bit of a tail wag going there, but he's going to have DRS to defend down towards turn 2, and there's not going to be much Tiak can do. Yeah, decides to stay the cautious approach in P8 currently, and looking to have quite a decent gap back to Smith Pell, so he may actually stay in P8.
I tell you what, yeah, he's done a really good job, and from having that penalty coming in, he's had a pretty solid drive today. Picks up 6 spots since his initial starting position, currently P7. Doesn't have the fastest lap anymore. But I tell you what, it's not been a terrible day for him. I mean, obviously he won't be too pleased about it, as I'm sure he's wished he'll be on the podium 3. But I tell you what, not that bad. He's shown a lot of skill to get around these drivers as well. Not all of these overtakes has been easy as well. Now the battle for the podium position. Scavney back 0.6 of a second on Helg. Helg back within a second on Cake. This one's going to get close.
Certainly will, and it's actually Helg who's got the most battery, so perhaps that's why he fell back a little bit, saving up to make a burst of effort towards the back of the Red Bull. The other two are down at 11% and 14% respectively, so that could come into play, you never know. Interestingly, we've got 4 drivers who've improved 6 positions since the start of the race: Scavney, Jin, Soy Loco and JC Blackley. But 11 positions the gains made by Tiak, so he's currently the hard charger from, well, I believe must be from last, doesn't it?
19th, yeah.
Did he set a time?
I don't remember if he did, to be honest. He may not have. I'm not sure.
In which case, he may not be eligible, but we'll have to review that towards the end. Either way, an impressive drive.
And I tell you what, him and his teammate of Hash in the other Ferrari had about everything in the kitchen sink thrown at them today in terms of everything being in their way. And including each other, yeah. Everything, including his own teammate, being thrown in his way. And I tell you what a recovery drive it has been. Now, coming to the line this time. And who's that? That's gone off. That's Soy Loco again having trouble over in Sector 2. That's over on the entry to Turn 5. Now here comes Helg. was almost trying to look to the bottom of Cake, but he's not going to get the position this time. Scavney, by the way, right there along with him, and not a lot of time left, or he's going to have to make some overtakes happen now, but it's no DRS through the rest of the circuit. Only have it here in Sector 1 through the pit straight and then down into Turn 2. The rest of the circuit, you're pretty much on your own to conserve that battery, or to wait for your opponents to make a mistake, and that's exactly what I think Scavney's been trying to do. Is his battery's up to 25% now, Helg's at 62, and then Cake all the way down to 16, so I tell you what, this is getting interesting.
Scavney's picking up a lot of understeer. You can see it, he's gone wide a few turns, exceeding track limits, possibly not getting warnings, but certainly a bit wider than he'd like to be, so that dirty air is starting to affect the Williams, as here was another example of it, going a bit wide there. Should try and avoid it doing that too much in case there's a penalty, but so far he is without, as the two drivers in front, so it's a straight battle on track without any penalties to change it at the end of the race. But very difficult for him to make a manoeuvre because Helg has the DRS not only to attack but also to defend.
That is true, and now Scavney trying to use all of his overtake button now to try to get to the back of Helg, and I tell you what, everything's staying tame for now, although it's interesting because Scavney, although being on the medium compound, it is getting towards the end of its life, but he's just not... It's not like he's got a massive pace advantage. It's really just going to come down to skill and waiting for these other two drivers to make a mistake, which I think Helg may have just had. It's going to be very close here between Scavney and Helg as they go up into, I believe this is turn 4, and ooh, Scavney doing the right thing and backing off of that one. As we have, that's a Ferrari.
Used a lot of his DRS.
That's Teok.
Yeah, a Ferrari.
Teok has gone around on the inside of turn 2, not what he needed. Although...
And that's going to cost him a position net to Smith Pell because he's got a penalty. And that gap
true.
is now covered. As we've got a Aston Martin.
That's Soiloko again. Yeah.
Yeah, at this point he just needs to finish the race and pick up his first points of the season. Try to avoid the elimination of in the drop zone by the end of it. I mean, it's not going well so far for him.
Yeah. Meanwhile, so Scavney still trying to find his way back to Helg. Meanwhile, Yolmir, he wants in on this as well. He's not that far behind, although Yolmir on 5 lap old older tires than Scavney on 21 lap old mediums. As Scavney wanted the inside. He wanted the inside on Helg, almost got it, but I tell you what, Helg's doing a good job of keeping it together. He's got to be sweating bullets right now, trying to keep this position, trying to keep his composure. As right now, it looks like Cake Thomas, all he has to do is do the same thing and just drive cleanly. And I tell you what, it looks like they're running out of opportunities to challenge him for this spot.
I tell you, if Jin did not have a 5-second penalty, which clearly was not deserved, he'd be in this fight right now. Yes, he is 5 seconds, in fact 4 seconds now, behind Yolmir. He actually might find himself attached to the back of this pack by the end of the race, but I think making any manoeuvres, there's just not enough time. There's only 2.5 laps left. In fact, for Mystic Joker, it's 2 laps and a corner left.
He's not got a lot of time, and he's not got a lot of tire left either. They're already 5 laps old. They only go up to about 7 or 8 laps at their peak, and then after that it's a slippery slope down. But I tell you what, we're coming around the corner now. Got 2 laps to go for these drivers for the fight for 3rd position. This is, I was hoping that it was going to get a little more intense right now, but it's all fairly decently tame as Helg trying his best to try to find a way around Cake Thomas, but not one of these drivers.
Bit of a bump there from Scavney on Helg. And
and here comes Yolmir.
With a golden opportunity to pounce and
down to the inside. And that's not gone well there for Yolmir.
Here comes Jin, and thankfully there's no contact there. But that's going to be down to 7th for Yolmir, and I don't think he'll have any trouble staying 7th. But definitely no prospect to improve now, unfortunately for him.
And I'm not sure what's exactly happened there. Has it? I don't think it was any malintent from Scavney on that corner as well. I think it was just kind of a racing incident between those two. I don't think there's any steward report to be had there. Even if he wanted to, it's not a very likely case that he could make. However, this fight for the podium is still going on here. Now, Scavney has taken this wide line out of, what is that? That's turn 11. He's taken that line every single lap. How is he not? Had about 12 seconds in
That's
time
Jin
penalties
who's
now.
spun there, and he's lost his front wing.
Oh, and Jin's what has happened here? Now that's an interesting spot of the circuit to be going around in, and man, that's the drive that he was having to get himself back into these positions to be fighting for what would have been 6th place. I tell you what, I highly doubt he's going to limp his way around the circuit with no front wing, and yeah, he's going to be coming in and losing even more spots.
I would have stayed out. There was prospect there to stay, but he's definitely going to lose out at least 2 positions now. There's only 1 lap left. Yomir does get 1 position back, and somehow, after I said there was no prospect of improvement, he's now P6 and it looks pretty safe.
Oh, and Helg.
In front though, Scavney is on Helg, and there's further contact. He tries to reset him.
That's not gone well at all. Now, Helg made a big mistake coming into turn 4. I think really just could he have been on 2 warnings, because it looked like he'd absolutely just slammed on the brakes to try to avoid picking up a penalty, and he went right into Scavney's way, and now both of them out of contention for this podium. That one's not going to go over well, but Mystic Joker making his way out of turn 14. Mystic Joker's been putting on an absolute clinic here in Division 1, and he's going to win the Hungarian Grand Prix, and I'm pretty sure Matt Rosie is going to come around and take second. A very nice drive from all 3 of the podium finishers, and I tell you what, Cake Thomas, hats off to him as well, because he had to stay absolutely picture perfect throughout these last 10 laps here to get this podium position. Absolutely well-deserved from him. Wow. Pretty solid showing there.
Yeah, distant 2nd place in the end for Matt Rosie, who, well, he had a penalty, possibly was saving some tyres towards the end. But of course, 2nd place is a fantastic achievement, and Cake Thomas with yet another podium, racking them up this season, which is fantastic to see. Helg unfortunate to not be able to challenge for that P3, but in I believe, season best 4th place. And Scavney there in 5th, escaping in fact, because there's only about a second and a bit behind was Yolmir. Smith Pell recovering to 7th, which is kind of unbelievable when you look back at his opening few laps, as well as Tiak in P8, also in the top 10, as Random and Jin after that late wing change. Bacon in an unlucky 11th, I'd say, with Hash in 12th. That's not good for his championship, unfortunately.
I tell you what, though, the Alpine team, definitely the big winners today. Matt Rosie finishing 2nd, and then I believe Smith Pell finishing a pretty solid spot as well. I believe it was P6 or 7 at the end of the race, so a big victory there for Alpine. Very well-deserved win for Mystic Joker, but I tell you what, that battle for that 2nd spot, I believe, belongs to Alpine now, as they are going to be out to a decent advantage here going into next week.
Yeah, I can see that, and yeah, Cake Thomas came into this race 3rd in the standings, and with Hash down in P12 in that race, he'll be closing up for sure on that Ferrari man. Matt Rosie may have overtaken Jin as well for 5th.
Definitely so. Jacko, you want to do the honors of running through our finishing order here?
Absolutely. So we've got Mystic Joker, no surprises, once again up front. 2nd time winning Hungary in Division 1. And it's Matt Rosie and Cake Thomas joining him on the podium, with Helg in a season best 4th. Scavney makes it a top 5, having started 11th on the grid. Very good race from him. Then it's Yolmir, Smith Pell, Tiak, Random Sirius and Jin with top 10s. Impossible Bacon, JC Blackley and Hash on the lead lap. Also the fastest lap for Hash, by the way, which is worth points. Sui, Soy Loco, both a lap down, but finishing the race. And then the DNFs include Scuba Steve, Willans, Super Ninas, and young DJ CJ. Fredhead, of course, did not attend the race.
Absolutely, and let's get to those interviews right now. Okay, me and Jacko were here with the podium 3, Mystic Joker, Matt Rosie, and Cake Thomas. What an absolutely brilliant race it was from you guys. Now, Cake Thomas, I want to start with you. Man, that last 10 laps, you've definitely had to be walking on eggshells there for the past 10 laps, and I tell you what, you did an absolutely brilliant job. How do you feel right now? That was an absolutely great battle to spectate along with.
Yeah, Helg was pushing me the whole way. I was definitely sweating. I honestly didn't think I was going to be able to hold him off, but I don't know what happened. I just looked back on the last lap and saw that he was like 6 seconds back, and I might have got collected with somebody else, but yeah, he definitely made me work for it. That's for sure.
Absolutely, and so we head into Austria next week. Austria, one of those tracks, very tricky one, but I tell you what, some people really enjoy this track, some people don't. How do you feel going into next week?
I love Austria. Me being a huge Red Bull fan too, kind of love their team track even more. But it makes for some good racing. The first three DRS zones are pretty good. It can be a little tricky at times with the DRS trains, but usually makes for some good racing. So I'm excited, hopefully, to back up another podium and get 2 in a row.
Anything to add, Jacko?
No, a very enthralling battle we had towards the end of that race there, Cake, and I imagine it certainly looked like it was as difficult to defend as I would have imagined. So, did you perhaps have a bit of the straight line speed than you cars ran, you think?
I was just really trying to save up ERS for that long straight. I kind of tried to not use it throughout the lap, and then just save just enough to where if he were to get a good run on me, that I could kind of defend it. But I was able to keep some distance on the straight, so that's definitely key for me. That's really the only passing opportunity in turn one. Get it done really cleanly.
Very true. Well, to get another podium.
Congratulations on that, Cake. Very nicely done. Now, Matt Rosie, on to you. I tell you what, I was panicking a little bit because I saw you'd picked up the 3-second penalty earlier on in the race. But I tell you what, you were absolutely pushing the pace towards the last half of the race there, and very nicely done. Very critical race for you, starting second and then, yeah, finishing second. How do you feel?
I'm a little disappointed, to be honest. I mean, credit to Mystic, hell of a race. And I thought I had the pace here, but qualifying, I was like almost 8/10 off my best lap. And then we get to the race, I'm already demoralized, planning to do a soft medium, which I thought was the only way I was going to win this race in the first place, because I didn't feel good on the hards. And of course, early safety car puts me on the hards, and then I managed to screw up way too much. Way too many errors, and then of course the penalties, and from there I just kind of coasted along. Knew I had no chance to beat Mystic. I know it's one thing to have the pace on Mystic, but he's definitely a better racer than me, even on tracks like this one. I feel like I can match him on pace, which is rare.
Well, I tell you what, despite the mistakes that you say you've made, Alpine definitely the biggest winners of the day as far as the constructor battle goes. Do you hope to carry that success next week into Austria? How do you rate your chances?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, Austria, I don't really feel too great on in this game. Definitely not as good as I felt around Hungary, so it'll be interesting, but I'm just hoping for another podium. Or I will not be challenging for the win there, though.
Jacko, anything?
Yeah, I wonder, Matt, but having battled Mystic a few times now, it might be a bit of a tactical battle that you might be able to change going into some new races. We need to throw it down inside of turn one and just get the car in front of Mystic at some point, and then what happens, or if you're still thinking that trying to make a pass at some point in the race is a better option.
Yeah, I mean, that race, I tried to play a bit of a tactical battle. I mean, I was holding back a lot. I mean, usually I feel like my race pace is about like 90% of my pace. I was going probably about 80, 85 for most of the race, trying to make him feel a little bit comfortable that he had a pace on me, and then I was going to turn it up. But then, no clue what his true pace was. I mean, he seemed like he was faster than me regardless, or at least the same speed, and B, my penalties and inconsistency got me there, so all credit to him, man. He deserves it. GG's. Tough guy to beat.
Certainly is.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations on your second place finish. Absolutely well deserved. Nicely done there. Brilliant drive. And now, Mystic, I tell you what, into the qualifying session, you threw us for a little bit of a loop there, because at first you had the mediums on, and then you suddenly switched to the softs, and in the last-ditch effort, you went and got pole position by 8/100ths of a second. Tell me, what was your thought process going through that and into the race? Was that kind of like a strategy thing? Did you want to play it that close? I mean, I don't know. That was a little wild. You had us guessing there.
Yeah, it was one of those things where I was gonna see where my medium lap was. It was okay. It wasn't the greatest. I was hoping I could kind of stay within top 5, top 6. Then possibly I would go back out. on another medium run and give that a go, but I dropped down to I think like P9 by the very end of quali, so just kind of decided, you know what, that's this track is all about track position. Sure, starting on the medium is great, but I mean, if you get stuck and you lose a lot of time and so many variables that I would rather just kind of be towards the front. Um, so yeah, I mean, it was honestly a lot closer. It was kind of crazy because it felt like a good lap, but a couple weeks ago in another league, I did a 13.4 or 3, something like that. So I was a little bit off from what I did then, which was weird because like this lap felt better than that while I was doing it. But hey, it was slower, so there's that. But yeah, I mean credit to Matt for sure, making quali very interesting. Uh, I was I honestly didn't know that if I was gonna get him. So yeah.
Well, I tell you what, you've done an absolutely great job today, and this track, one of those tracks that require absolutely no mistakes to be made, and throughout the course of the race, definitely did that. So nice job there. And then that same thing applies next week going into Austria. How do you feel going into it?
Um, Good. I mean, it's one of those tracks where like, I've had a good like history there. It's just personally, I find the track boring. To just drive, I find it really really boring. But I mean the DRS train and just, how easy it is to stay with a car or whatever, it can definitely make for some very interesting battling. So definitely looking forward to that. Um, same kind of thing. Just consistency is huge, especially there. With the three DRS zones just back to back, um, and penalties as well, um, which I was really worried about here. Surprisingly, I only had one warning around here, which is kind of crazy because I've definitely gotten a few penalties around here in the previous games, so that was not fun. But yeah, great race. Um, Going back to what Matt said, about him kind of applying pressure and kind of maintaining a certain gap and then putting the pressure. I mean, yeah, I definitely noticed that at times. Um, Biggest thing though is, and some people use up a ton of their ERS management. That's a huge thing around like in this game and even last game. And that's something that I've been doing my best to try to get better at and improve with. And so I was just kind of maintaining and managing my ERS so that way, when I would see him kind of push again, then then I would kind of up it a little bit, and I'd be able to because I wasn't like constantly, struggling for ERS and only being able to deploy it, on like the main straight or things like that. So just kind of managing that, but he definitely didn't make it easy. It was, he was right there, especially after the safety car. After the safety car, I managed to get a nice gap on him, but then Jin ended up getting past me. I decided to let him by because honestly, he was on an entirely different strat, and there was just no point in me losing time and fighting that, and just yeah, it was just pointless because at that point he was gonna have a quicker car, and I was just gonna try to have him pull me along so that way I can harvest DRS and just use DRS and whatnot. So Matt ended up reeling me back in towards the end of that bit, and then from there it was like, okay, I really kind of gotta like up the pace a little bit, and then I noticed that Matt got the penalty, and then I could tell that from that point forward he kind of was losing a bit of like focus and making errors, and it's tough. I mean, I've been there. I've definitely been there, so it's not easy.
Anything to add, Jacko?
Yeah, I was going to question you about that landing too. I thought that was the case, and also whether it was in order to preserve some ERS. But you answered the question before I could ask. But moving on to something slightly different, we were talking, or Crash was certainly talking, about a curse. And it
Hmm.
seems that the curse is not going to Crash, it's just me. So I'm the lucky charm. You can make me laugh.
Uh, you know what?
Oh
I
dear.
never, I never thought you'd be my lucky charm, Jacko. But you know what? I'll take it though. I'll take it. Uh,
Oh
definitely don't
dear.
need you missing a race for the rest of the season, man.
Do you think honestly you can win,
You know
all
what?
the races the rest of the season?
You know what? You know what? It's crazy that you say that because that actually might be the case, right? Because I mean, look at Singapore at the end of last season. You didn't commentate that race. You raced,
That's
and I
right.
got absolutely destroyed by Fred. So, I don't know. I don't know.
Oh no, the
Oh
conspiracy
man.
theories.
Well, I suppose that
Oh,
curse
well,
will have
congratulations
to be.
again. Very impressive.
Yeah, congratulations to the podium three. I guess we'll see if the curse pays off again next week as the normal Division One guys are back at the Red Bull Ring. Thank you all for joining us. My Div One experience has definitely been a pleasure. And I tell you what, have a good one next week, and hopefully we get the same action we had tonight.